Thanks for joining me, everybody. I am here with my good friend Garrett Mehrguth, and I have practiced his last name so that I don't screw it up. Good to see you, Garrett. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Carl. You did it perfect. So, I mean, that was good practice. Practice makes perfect.
I remember reading in college, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you read that book? I assume you probably have
I have, yeah.
Okay. So one of the takeaway lessons, I was an engineer, so I'm a nerd. I don't, do people normally, but that book kind of got me thinking about this. Is like the most precious word in the English language to a person is their own name. And so I've always tried to make it a habit to get your name actually decently right.
Yeah, it's the one thing we always hear when we're listening, right? Is someone who said our name. So
yeah. So we won't just talk about cheesy business books. Garrett, you run the biggest performance marketing agency that is independently held, at least in our knowledge. There might be a couple others nearby you. You run a really big agency. You started an agency and you're now working on buying agencies. There's a lot of ground to cover here.
Yeah, and I coach agency owners. I kind of have an agency ecosystem. I'm addicted to agencies. So
yeah, why is that? They're terrible businesses. Why are you in here? What are you doing?
I'm a masochist, to be honest. I think if you were to probably do some therapy on me, I probably like the pain. I like that they're ambition, effort-related organizations. I've found I've done well in things that are highly human dependent, motivational dependent, and energy dependent. In other words, I genuinely love to work hard. I genuinely love the craft of marketing. I think it's really fun. I think the actual work is stimulating and exciting. I actually if I could just do marketing all day, I probably actually enjoy my job even more. I like solving problems, and I like building teams and working with others. And I like that it's a people business. I like that clients are unreasonable and have high expectations. I enjoy fighting against churn and trying to figure out how to grow. I like the fact that most of our services become irrelevant every 10 years and you have to come up with new ones. All of those things to me are unique, exciting challenges.
Yeah. Everybody talks. I mean, I think there's a grass is always greener sort of side to running and owning an agency where you look at businesses like SaaS, or you look at some kind of more software heavy business and you think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to not have so many people? But I appreciate you running into the challenge. I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I enjoy it, man. I'm not I think one of the things is I've never been distracted. I've never stopped working my butt off. I've never, I just try to work, honest to God, a lot of hours and make sure every hour I work is an effective hour that's aligned with the goals of the business, where I see the greatest opportunities, where I can get the most leverage off of my own unique skill set. I kind of just obsess over being an effective person and working really hard.
Yeah. Let's start with the biggest. Let's start with Directive, and then we'll work our way down into the other areas you do. So with Directive, your role has obviously changed a lot. You're I'm sure much more hands-off and leadership focused at this point, but give me a sense of your day-to-day there, how much you are involved in the team and helping them out.
Yeah, I still work about 12 hours a day on Directive. I haven't I'm actually taking my first vacation in 7 years. So I mean, it's not it's not hands off. I think that's the biggest lie in actual entrepreneurship, is that when I get to this size, or when I unlock or accomplish this thing, I'm gonna elevate in my company. This idea that the founder needs to get out of the way for the company to grow, it is wrong, as long as you're not a bad founder. In other words, if you're actually committed, you're listening, you're trying to improve, you're gonna have a ton of flaws. You're gonna be bad at a lot of stuff. You're gonna struggle with frustration and anger and emotion and everything else because you care so much. But getting out of the way, and there's not this magical executive team that you hire that just takes you to the next level. And it's not one of those things. And I think that's been the hardest part for me to process, and what I try to coach others on and teach them is there isn't this mythical moment where you grow to 50 million in top line revenue with 30 points EBITDA because you elevated that. And in fact, actually, if you go talk to the most successful founders of big professional services firms, they still are involved on top accounts. They are still involved in almost every sales pitch. They still create a ton of content and thought leadership. They still travel to all the events. They still push on core initiatives. They frankly don't elevate at all. The only people that elevate are the people who sell to private equity and move to a chairman role. There's no other moment of elevation in this game. It's whoever can work the hardest for the longest without giving up.
So what then, I mean, even so, even without elevating yourself out of it, I imagine your role is still pretty different than, the founders who are down there in the weeds just getting started.
Yeah, probably a little different than that. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So like, give me a sense of like, do you end up talking with, sales director and production director as kind of your reports, or give me a little sense of like who you're interfacing with to kind of keep things pushing?
Yeah. So I manage 3 different executive groups in a group setting. So I manage the executive team. So that would be, I usually try to have 3 people from operations in an agency. We're one of the very few organizations in the world where COO is kind of technically different than maybe in a different type of organization. So COO is kind of running client delivery, and it's kind of like, and then I have the deliverable side and you have the services side. So that's kind of like the 3-headed monster of an agency. Is you have the services kind of side of operations. You have the product and like efficacy, like are we good at keeping our promise and getting results? And then you have kind of the COO who's managing VP of operations and maybe VP of client services, let's say. That's kind of like the triangle, let's say, on the operational side of an agency. And then you have head of sales or head of marketing, or you're big enough to have a head of growth who's on the exec team, and head of sales and head of marketing would be on the leadership team. You have head of people ops, and you would have head of finance, and that would probably be like the group. Maybe there's a head of product if you guys are trying to become more tech enabled and you're trying to do some things there with AI and kind of technology development. So that'd be exec team. Leadership team would be kind of all of the heads of all the business units. So kind of that like top of the mid-level management. And then I run a third one called emerging executives, so that I try to not have churn with top individual contributors or people that are critical to the day-to-day function of the business that I want to develop and grow as professionals and keep close to the organization and give new leadership opportunities to make sure I'm promoting internally. So I run those 3 groups, and then I really try to not do many one-on-ones. One-on-ones is like very ineffective. You're essentially doing this like hands-off administrative therapy session that doesn't really change the outcomes of the performance of the company. So what I do is I run us on 6-month planning periods. So we don't run on quarters, we run on halves. So H1 is what we're in right now. And then I'll design the strategy for the year and then the initiatives for H1. So annual strategy, halves-based execution. And then I set a 30-minute weekly meeting on every single initiative with the team owning it. And then I just push the pace on what we're building. So I have fun. It's really not fun managing humans at this ethereal level of elevation. It doesn't make you money. You're ineffective. You're bored. And you're kind of just pretending. You're playing what I call playing business. It's way better to map out what you need to do to be great and then get yourself personally involved to push pace, remove roadblocks, get things approved faster through finance, say no to things that should be said no to. And then you can once again align the initiatives to your vision. Now, you're not doing any execution. You're just creating pace, alignment, vision, and your team is still doing all the work. They're the ones bringing the agenda, and I'm just sitting in there pushing all the initiatives as fast as I can.
Yeah. Interesting. So it sounds like your time spend is, rather than, personally developing all the business or whatever, maybe you have some role still in like, as a presence, but is a lot more on that kind of motivating and pushing the team on the strategic initiatives you're taking on.
Yeah. And helping us, we're all our worst enemies when we're in execution. I'm no different than my team, right? It's really hard to have your head up and down at the exact same time. So what I try to do is say, okay, I love what we built here. Now, if we know the vision of the company is in the next 3 years, we're trying to do this. Do you think building this on Google Sheets makes more sense than integrating this into our tech stack and putting it on a web app? Okay. Now, before you do that, you need a working beta. So don't pause what you're doing. Don't think you magically have to turn a Google Sheet into a web app. But let's understand that the long-term home is probably going to live in this thing. So it creates IP and it integrates into the holdco, and we can push it down to other agencies. So let's pause for a second and think about, okay, if our value prop is how we get leverage off of OpEx, increasing marginal returns on gross margins through our holdco, then does that what we're building right now fit within that vision for the next 3 years? And how do we want to phase it out? And so I'm doing stuff like that pretty much, all day.
Yeah. So kind of taking that vision and making sure that it's understood the whole way down the chain there. Yeah.
Yeah, and implemented, applied, like that we're building what we need to build. There's always problems too. Okay, let's say churn spikes up. All right, why are we churning engagements? What are we going to do to fix it? Right? How do you get from this reactive, oh, this client's firing us, to this proactive, identified in the first place, train the team on conditional logic. If this happens, right, new CMO, then we do this. If the point of contact changes, then we do this. If the renewal's in 90 days, then we do this. And building your playbooks and then building visibility systems before you leave. So what I do is I build, I don't operate. So once something's built, I'm out of the meeting. You'll probably never see me again. But before I leave, I build the visibility system so that what gets kind of like inspected gets done. What gets measured gets improved. So essentially build things, create infrastructure, get out of it, let the team operate. They're way better at that than I am. And then go jump into the next thing. And I just do that my whole life, essentially.
You mentioned earlier that agencies have to basically completely change their services every 10-ish years, which is probably accurate in marketing, especially where the channels are changing constantly, the tools we use are changing constantly, the platforms that we're using are changing constantly. What's the secret to staying on top of that as an owner?
You have to be passionate. I mean, you have to be obsessive. You have to genuinely love the craft. There's no other way. And agencies are really bad at product innovation. So they start to experience their CAC starts to go up because their product positioning and packaging and their pitch isn't resonating. So their close rate kind of goes down and they become less efficient at acquiring new business. Churn goes up because clients are getting excited about new opportunities to allocate their capital to new channels, new tactics, new campaigns. Consumer preference, I think, is the biggest thing that we discount changes. So when I got into this game almost 12 years ago, so I bootstrapped Directive off Fiverr, selling $5 social media calendars, and then just bootstrapped it. When I started, I was a local SEO guy. So I had this small little shop. They asked me to do something. It was hand out flyers, make a Yelp page, Facebook, all that, right? Never done before. Did it all for 30 days. Came to get my check. He said, come back tomorrow. Whole place was boarded up. It's the very first ever Directive contract. I got stiffed on the bill. Very first engagement. I was 21, 22. Then I got a hookah shop. He asked me to build a website. I never built one, but I watched YouTube videos, figured the Genesis framework out, found the Divi theme, dragged and dropped my way to freedom, made him a website. Goes live, got my little money. It was probably $500 back then or something. And then he was like, hey, could you rank it? I was like, hey, I don't know how to do SEO, but I could learn. So I read everything that was on the Moz blog, watched all the Whiteboard Fridays, read all the SEJ, SEL stuff. Next thing you know, hookah shop's ranking number 1. It's busy. I'm like, this is dope. And you kept going. Well, now I haven't done local SEO in 8 years. I mean, I won the Allstate account about 8-9 years ago. I still have it today. Agency record for Allstate, but I don't do local anymore. Right. And so it all changes and it's just new games and new things. And it's just the only thing that really constrains you is your own curiosity and, effort.
I agree. I think that's something I see in a lot of agency owners that are kind of in that woe is me sort of mode where it's oh, the market's just not working. It's just not, I'm not getting the deal flow I used to have. And it's some of it is an execution problem. Some of it's just get your head out of your ass and get creative, it's time to rethink.
I'm getting beat up too right now. I'm down. I'm not great. I'm missing numbers. There's no magic solution. We are in a recession. That's true. But, you could just keep bitching about it. Or you could actually try some new stuff, and the new stuff doesn't ever work. As a reminder to everyone, there's no, nothing ever works until one day something does and you grow again. But it's not immediate. It's not fun. It's not easy. It takes forever. But when it works, I think the key is once you get that taste of something, don't give up and just stay locked in on that thing. I remember Directive pioneered gift cards for demos. So all those ads and playbooks you get of we pioneered that, popularized it, rolled out. We still roll it out and operate it today, and it still works. But gift cards are starting to see lower efficacy. Makes sense. We've been running it for every B2B SaaS company in the world for the last 6 years. It's not working as well. Okay, well, we're trying to beat it. So now we're running air tags, we're running AirPods, we're running physical gifts, we're running different gift cards. Amazon gift cards still work the best, but we're trying every day. But here's the thing, when we started, it took 6 months to win our first deal. We had all these meetings, people were interested, but they wanted the gift card, not us. And so we had to learn to develop the sales process, the marketing playbooks, how to improve the life cycle stage conversion rates. And we didn't give up. And so I never cut spend for 6 months, even though we were spending hundreds of thousands on ads. And then we figured it out. And from there, first 18 months, we had 10,000 accounts. We held 6,800 sales calls with those 10,000 accounts in 18 months. So we didn't give up. And we found something. We just kept investing into it. And I never took the money out of the agency. I always reinvested into top line growth. And so if you don't kind of like abuse your P&L and your balance sheet and you believe in your ambition, you really, like, for example, shouldn't have more. Like, once you got 3 months runway in cash, you really probably shouldn't have more than 5 to 10 points EBITDA unless you're trying to sell. Because what you're really doing is you're essentially building cash without deploying it. And then you're going to get about 40% of it taken out in taxes. And so what you're really doing is kind of somewhat frankly being apathetic, because profit is a byproduct of top line revenue. You can't just go up 70% net profit in an agency. You're probably going to be stuck at 30. Between 30 and 20% is fairly normal once you get to size. And that you're still, by the way, 30 is pretty high performance. Really good is like 20 and 20. So you're growing 20% and you got 20 points EBITDA. But if you're not redeploying it, you're just going to get taxed. And so you really should keep investing everything until you're ready to sell or have a capital event.
Yeah. What this topic of growth, I was going to ask you this because you see and talk to a lot of agency owners. How much of the ones that really hit that 20% consistent growth rate, how much of that is they're in the right market at the right time versus they do all the right things operationally? Or do you have to have both to hit those numbers consistently?
I think first thing they have to do is figure out to get their contracts right. So almost probably 75, I'd argue about 70 to maybe 75% of Directive's revenue is on long-term contracts without any terms for convenience. No 30-day out clause, no 60-day out clause, long-term real contract. That's really important because there's so much instability at the point of contact level in the marketing departments we service. Right? There's CMO turnover, there's VP turnover, there's director turnover, there's manager turnover. And so, if you have these month-to-month terms, new regime comes in, puts in the notice, you never even got a chance. You were doing a great job with the last team, and maybe the VP just got promoted or a new job and you're out, right? And so one thing is getting the contracts right so that you can essentially have a long enough lifetime value to have a high enough CAC to properly invest into marketing and sales growth. So I think one thing is just getting your LTV right. Of top performers that I've found is like, they're very good at, like, they learn contracts and billing. I think that's important, number one. Number two, it is like doing something for someone is a lot better than doing lots of things for lots of people. Like Draft.dev, right? You guys do a really good job of doing a specific service for a specific person. That creates a pull function. It also gives you better gross margins. It allows you to be really consistent. Now, if you want to grow Draft.dev, acquiring, let's say, a media agency that you could cross-sell Google Ads services and other things to those same content clients with that same angle would be how most of my agencies I coach would maybe double in size in 12 months, is through cross-sells and expansion of like ancillary services where the point of contact they service still owns this other thing in their day-to-day roles and responsibilities. So like I built all my services for the director of demand gen of a B2B company. And so I don't offer any service that my singular ICP isn't directly responsible for in 75% of my TAM. So like in the normal expectation of what this person does for this industry and this title, all my services are dedicated to them. And that's where I think the best people are growing is like double niching, triple niching. So it's like that kind of depth is really important. Expand. Same thing as like in the software companies, right? Like the best SaaS businesses are point solutions that eventually expand to platforms. but not because they raised capital, but because their product had a real fit to their ICP. And the reason most of these SaaS companies are dying is they raised capital and they're now going from being a product to a platform, and they struggle with market fit. Their CAC skyrockets, their go-to-market's inefficient, and they essentially cannot outpace churn without absorbing all their cash, and it creates essentially a decline. So I think like product marketing is exponentially more important to agencies than in packaging. How we package and price and position our services is the number one driver of growth.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really a good observation too. And I hadn't thought of it this way, which is having a singular service that you offer to a single persona. I agree with you. In my experience, is a great way to get an entry point and to stand out as an agency, because so many agencies are generalist, like we do anything for anybody who will give us money, which is just shit. So anyway, you get beyond that by being very singularly focused. The challenge is the growth side. And then you're right, like anything you cross-sell has to be sold to that same persona. We've tried many times at Draft to launch things that didn't work, and they were all because the persona who's buying our content is not the persona who would pay for X other thing that we thought would be cool. And I think you're spot on there. That's something I've learned, or I'm learning the hard way.
No, I think it's important. I mean, it's what makes you great to start. And then you should essentially have in your mind over the next 3 years, here's how I think we could expand our product roadmap. And then you can start to validate those hypotheses while doing client interviews and prospect interviews and random pitches, going to events and say, hey, I know you love, draft.dev. We were thinking about offering this service. Would this be something you'd want to pitch for? And if you can I add you to the wait list? And next you start to develop, and say, okay, well, when we're ready, we're going to come back to you and see if we can earn your business, right? And I think it's just about logical expansion of services without diluting your soul. Like you can't bastardize quality and outcomes. You have to keep your soul. So you can't get greedy, and you shouldn't do a bunch of things, but you need to do like relevant things to the actual pain points and needs of your day-to-day delivery. And it's like your cross-sell should be natural. Like we launched RevOps because we would be doing people's Google ads, and we wanted to do value-based bidding using offline conversion tracking between their CRM and their ad platform. Well, they couldn't do it, and our media buyers couldn't do it. So we built up a RevOps function, and it's a natural fit. So it's more about like solving your own issues. Let's say maybe you guys are doing a ton of content and you think that the featured images suck, so no one's actually reading your content. So you're like, I think we got to offer some type of creative. So we start to add more technical exhibits and other things like that within the content. And now you have two services that are both, able to be sold as a package up front or cross-sold later and fit each other really well. So it's more about that. It's more about staying in the weeds and listening to what your team is saying, what your clients are saying, and then trying to do like one a year and making a bigger bet, like pre-hire the team, like really bet on yourself. I think we make really way too small of bets in this industry, and we're too risk averse. And so we kind of like try to build airplanes out of cardboard and then say that airplanes don't work. And it's like, well, you made it out of cardboard.
Yeah. What was the need that you saw that led you to start Abe then? Because obviously that is something different from Directive, but I guess it could have been part of Directive. Like how did that work?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm right yet. I think I'm right, but I don't know if I'm right because it's like my strategy has some flaws. Like, for example, like Directive can't feed Abe very well because Directive also offers LinkedIn ads. So I'm like, I should have thought about that a little bit different, right? So like, as you learn, but the value prop was very simple. It's Directive, from what I can understand with my partnership with LinkedIn, and we have a very good one, is we're, I think, the second largest indie non-holdco like advertiser right now globally on LinkedIn. I think I've spent over $75 million on the platform in the last 2.5 years. So like I'm a pretty good advertiser on it. And then I personally have spent between $1 and $3 million a year on the platform for the last 5 years of my own capital, doing between 10 and 20 million in bookings. So we're very good at LinkedIn. We know how to monetize it as a direct response channel for the best brands in the world. Like we have a great portfolio, great spender, great results, great case studies. But I don't run LinkedIn ads at Directive. I run your paid media. So I do your Google ads, your programmatic, your Meta, your ABM, and your LinkedIn. And so if I talk too much about any one service as the platform, it like bastardizes the other parts and it doesn't resonate as well. So people hire Directive for usually one and a half things. Like they're coming to us not because they want us to run LinkedIn. Like that's never happened, I don't think, in the history of Directive, where someone hires me because they want me to run LinkedIn. They want me to be their ad agency. And so I manage all their channels. I don't charge per channel. I just charge a percent of spend. So I've got all their channels. Now Abe gets to say, all we do is LinkedIn. All of our content is around LinkedIn. All of our ad copy is around LinkedIn. All of our messaging, emails, talent, labor, we just do LinkedIn. And the value prop there is that you get a point solution that specializes in one thing. And I think there's a gap in the marketplace for agency owners that have my mentality. None of them are running LinkedIn ad agencies right now. They're very much less experienced, let's just say, in like how they think about it. And they have great agencies, but they maybe maybe Abe is a failure, right? Like, I don't know. I just got to go work really hard. But I think the idea is a good idea. And I think that LinkedIn is a very effective ad platform for B2B organizations. I think it's the most effective ad platform for B2B organizations. And I wanted to build a brand around it. So we've been able to secure a partnership with LinkedIn, and they help us deliver beta features, ad credits, private kind of data analysis and studies, training for our team. And I'm really enjoying our partnership with them. I think they have an amazing group there. And I think B2B companies should be spending more on the platform. And I think they'll be looking for a vendor who can help them unlock that as an individual channel. And then if they want to consolidate, I can still kick them back to Directive. So Abe also creates NRR, essentially cross-sell opportunities for Directive by replenishing its total volume, what I call a service addressable market. So that's your internal ability to cross-sell. And then your TAM is your external marketplace ability to grow. I think it can also really help drive revenue growth for Directive by essentially selling people who want to do full service media back into it, or people who want to do RevOps or content design, CRO. We can sell those services to them as well.
Yeah. Do you find that customers that come to Abe are only doing LinkedIn, or are they doing those other ads but just on their own and they want you to help with LinkedIn specifically, or is it a mix of both?
I don't know enough yet. Abe only officially launched 2 weeks ago. We already have 2 clients. I pre-hired a team of 8. So, I kind of bet on myself pretty big. So, I pre-hired that group in November. So that group's been training and developing, absorbing essentially cash from the holdco. Because I never want to launch and be amateurish. I know it's a little riskier, and I kind of always debate myself with that. But last year I went down market for the first time. I again invested a couple $1 million pre-revenue into the concept and the belief of okay, this is what we're gonna do, and then it's gonna work. And that bet last year did almost 4 million in the first 12 months. So I'm hoping Abe can do similar performance. I just try to do one big bet a year. Yeah.
You brought this up mentioning down market, and this is actually something where the traditional path in agencies is start small, bottom of market, work your way up. I don't know if that's right or wrong. You see a lot of agencies. What are the pros and cons to that? Or do you think that's always the right path? Is it safe to stay at that, working with startups and early stage companies, or do you have to move up market to make a thing really big?
You have to move up market unless you can get some real arbitrage on tech or labor markets. I'm global right now, not as much arbitrage as I thought. So I have labor force in Mexico, Canada, US, and the UK. And then entity in Australia, but no one down there right now because I don't have any. With the recession in B2B, they're EMEA is already small, but it's smaller, and APAC went to 0. Nobody's really trying to expand in Asia Pacific right now in my portfolio. So I don't have a ton of team down there right now. But I do have an entity, formal bank account, corporation in Australia. I just don't have those engagements at this time. I had them 2 years ago. I don't have them now. I think what happens is usually our ego, in professional, we want to work with logos that we can tell people about that they've heard of before. I don't know if you've ever talked to people, Carl, and try to explain who your clients are, and you try to explain who Sumo Logic is to somebody, and they don't quite get it, right? So we all want to have the sexy, cool logos, and the brands that people have heard of. It feels good for our ego. So I think we all kind of want to move up market, but I think the reality is the mid-market, when things are good, is where you make all your money. And things aren't good right now. So where you actually make your money right now is with the haves and the have-nots, not the might-haves. So like historically, you make your money, let's say, like Directive would have 2 out of the 5 top players in every category, for a long time. And then what happened is when all those people raised all those rounds, the founders essentially diluted themselves so much on their new valuations that, and their revenue dropped so significantly, they're in this like kind of hellhole where like they actually, like they've diluted themselves to nothing. So their effort's no longer worth it. So the business is declining and they're mental, it's spiritual, it's physical, it's all those things. And so all those kind of like challenger brands, the 2-3 player in the category, they're the ones who usually actually spend the most on marketing because they're trying to go be the next big thing. And the big thing is really stable, but actually doesn't spend as much on ads as you might imagine. And so you usually make your money on these kind of like challenger brands. Now, in this new economy we're in, all the challenger brands are dead. They're getting acquired, they're folding, they're divesting, they're somewhat recessed. The haves, the leader, is still around, is still renewing with Directive, is still growing with Directive. The challenger, in-house marketers are saying, I can actually do that thing that I haven't done in 8 years. Just don't fire me. I can do it. Fire the agency, right? And so now you're competing with your point of contact for job security. And then the startups is where the growth is. So people with a new idea, because they left that challenger brand that failed and they want to start fresh. So it's kind of like the startups and the market leaders, and then the middle is just dead right now. So I went down to startups and decided to help those people. In the meantime, eat my ego, and I'm back to working with mom and pops and small businesses. It's all within the same B2B category. And some of these people have amazing brands I think are going to be huge successes, but we kind of now do a lot at the very bottom and a lot at the very top. And we don't have nearly as much as we used to in the middle, which is where I used to make all my money.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've seen a lot of that same trend at draft.dev, so I can empathize. And I think you're kind of going back to your earlier point, which is that agencies are like your market is going to change all around you all the time. And so a big part of our role as founders, CEOs, whatever we call ourselves, is being aware of that and seeing that move to like, oh, the middle market that we used to rely on is not spending money. All these second players are dying or just flat for a while. We got to go find somewhere where there is spend. And you're right. There's always new companies starting. There's moving into other industries. There's adjacent services. Like, well, there's options, but you have to get creative. You can't just say, I think this is one of those things that really bugs the shit out of me with a lot of people who talk about building an agency. They want to build something big enough to get passive income. I just don't believe that exists in our industry, maybe in any industry, but definitely not in ours.
Active, baby. I'll tell you, every dollar you get in this game is active dollars. You got to earn those dollars every day, and you better be active, or else there's someone like me who's going to take your account.
Right. That's right.
Like that's how you just know there's someone like me in every category, and there's another version of me in my category, and we're both working our tail off for the same finite amount of revenue. It is not some unlimited thing. It is a competition. The person who works the hardest has the best value prop, and then most importantly, delivers on that value prop most consistently, wins the game. And if you think it's something else, you're wrong. I'm sorry. Like that's what it is.
No, okay. So you've talked and touched on this, like things are tougher for agencies now than they were a couple of years ago. Totally agree. Is that why it's a buyer's market? Is that why it's time to go look to acquire other agencies? Because some of them are down. They might want to sell at what would be a discount in a good year. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm doing it because I think that I can get a good deal. I don't think there's any such thing as a good deal. There's no reasonable agency founder. That human doesn't exist. So they want a multiple they're not worth, and you have to be able to do the math in your head to decide if you can if it's worth it to you. Because if you try to buy agencies at market, what I mean, there's two options. I think this is a Warren Buffett quote, so I'm not going to remotely take credit for it, and I could be wrong because the internet's full of crap these days. But essentially, it's like I'd rather buy a great company. I'd rather pay too much for a good company than get a deal on a bad company. And I think that's actually really good advice. And what I've also learned is even when people are down for trailing 24 or trailing 12, they want to be traded because they had a good January, and so like, the things are going to be great, and you're like, maybe. Technically, though, that's not really how banks give you debt. It's not usually how investors work. They're going to run a trailing 24, trailing 12. They're going to do a multiple of EBITDA. They're going to run a quality of earnings. They're going to give you some adjustments, 50 up front, 25 on a note, 25 on an earnout. It's kind of how the game works. And you're probably worth 3 to 4x and you want 6, so we can't do the deal, right? Like that's how it goes in life. I'd say what I'm trying to do is saying a lot of my organic capital, I always grew through advertising and like outbound. So I would say, here's 10,000 B2B accounts that I want to win. And historically, if I were to talk to those 10,000, let's say 50% of them would have a budget that fit my minimums where I could transact with them. Now that number is at 15%, and it's very tricky to identify the 15% versus the 85%. And so my CAC has gone up a lot. And so the reason I'm actually exploring M&A is because I think at our size, it's a more effective way to grow. But I would say the last thing I'm trying to do in a deal right now is acquire revenue. Like that's a nice to have for me. The need to have in an acquisition is that there's competency value. In other words, they have a competency that I believe makes my positioning to new business more competitive and to my existing clients stickier because I become more valuable to what I can deliver for them and what I can sell into my existing service addressable market. So I'm more looking at things saying, like we were talking about this offline, but like I think influencer marketing is going to be big for B2B. Anyone out there has an influencer marketing shop and they're looking to sell it, DM me. I'd love to chat with you. That's like a 5-10 person team, 1 to 3 million in top line revenue, doing great work, little burnt out, maybe over it, maybe want to go join something bigger than themselves. I could then take that and sell influencer services to my clients a heck of a lot better than I can try to go hire and build up a competency around influencer marketing. Some of these things are really talent dependent. Some of these founders are just really good at things. They're great at it. They're passionate about it. And I'm way better off paying them and acquiring them than I am trying to compete with them when I'm a platform. When you're a platform, it's just hard to isolate any individual competency.
Yeah, the opportunity cost is huge too when you're a much larger company. I think there's Clayton Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma, talks a lot about this, with the reason that big tech companies don't just invest in building their own innovation from scratch. Instead, they buy it, is that opportunity cost of them spending money and all their precious people's resources on building this thing that is basically going to undercut their cash cows is very hard to justify. But when a small startup gets to a certain size, it's worth like buying them in, because then they get to save all that time and money and just like acquire the winner of the startup race. And so it's just sounds like a similar model.
No, I have the same problem, man. It's not that easy. Like a lot of my new services I've launched over the last 5 years, I should have acquired instead of built. So I'm just going off experience too. I'm looking at them going, amount of money I spent and where we're at today, I would have been a lot better with a different strategy. And you only know what you know, right? And so now as I look about service expansion, I'm like, I think I'm better off buying. Now the hard part is agencies aren't that easy to buy. Like there's not that many great ones who actually keep their promises, and the ones that do aren't always for sale. So it's a lot of frog kissing to try to figure it out.
Totally. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think for the last 3 months, I've been doing 5 to 10 meetings with agency owners trying to look for acquisitions this year. And I think I've got 2 that I'm making soft offers to and might LOI the next couple of weeks. So that's the numbers, whatever that pencils out to.
I'm doing that same thing, and I've got 1 LOI that someone said no to this year, I think, and I do about 3 to 5 a week on top of everything else, and it's hard. It's a lot of effort. It's not easy.
And there's a lot of cycles. You don't know which meeting's going to pay off, right? And so one of the challenging parts is like I had 3 earlier today that none of them are going to pay off, and it's a bummer. And so there's an hour and a half wasted. But at the same time, you just have to go through it. There's no skipping it.
No, when we have an education problem on how agencies are valued, I mean, I had one conversation with somebody. They were doing $4 million in top line on, a couple 100,000 in EBITDA, roughly maybe almost $1 million in EBITDA. They wanted to sell for $20 million. And I just sat there and they were telling me how they've been talking to bankers and they know the multiple. I sat there. What the, at that moment, you're like, well, this is like, okay. Like,
yeah. Well, we can end this conversation now. Yeah.
Yeah. Go to the next call. It happens a lot. I will tell you, like, there's not a lot of education in this category around how deals, transactions work, what buyers are looking for. And so I try to talk about it on my LinkedIn and do content around it, but it is a little tricky, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen the same thing. You also, I wanted to touch on this. I know, again, you've got a lot of stuff going on, so we've covered a lot of ground, but I did want to touch on your coaching and your course and your kind of like your education component of what you do. Why get into that, man? You've got a great business. You're like, that feels so down market. And I'm not knocking it, obviously. I want to hear legitimately, because it seems like you want to give back, and I want to hear about that.
Honestly, it's my favorite part of the day. I love being a consultant. Like, I actually genuinely love consulting. Like, that's all I've ever wanted to really do professionally. I only started this agency because, like, I tried to apply to all the consulting firms and I couldn't even get in. I mean, I might be like just an unhireable personality type. I have no idea. But like, I mean, I've never worked for anybody. I just started Directive straight out of school and bootstrapped it. Like, I just love consulting. I love meeting with business owners and I like helping them. And I think I have certain gifts around like motivating people to do what they already know they should. Like, my ideas are more listening to you tell me your ideas and then convincing you to actually do them, if that makes any sense. And I love that. I mean, I've always coached. So like, I was trying to go pro in soccer and I was like, probably only 13, 14 years old. I would do privates for 5 and 6 year olds and coach them and stuff. So I've always coached and love it. And then working with these agency founders, I mean, a lot of them are so good at certain things I'm so bad at too. I learn a lot. And what I found is they universally like my energy. They like my intensity. They like how committed I am. And they want to get some of that in them, that like self-belief and that confidence. And for me, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just being me as much as they're being them. And so we have a really good dynamic, which is like, I don't do execution even in my current jobs. Like, I don't do any real button pushing. I just do like pace. Like, what do you want to do? All right, here's how you map it out. Who's on your team? What are their roles? How do we work this into their jobs? How do we align incentives so they're motivated to do it? And I build structure and systems and strategy. And then I push really hard and I push my clients really hard. And they all have almost doubled, tripled to whatever their goals are. Some want cash, some want to sell, some want to grow, some, and everybody usually hires me because they want more new biz. We're pretty good at new biz at Directive. So they want more leads. They're like, okay, Garrett, how do you spend $300,000 a month on marketing? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. How could I even do that? And I walk them through. Here's how I do financial modeling. Here's what I believe in. But at 99.9% of the time goes back to, how are you managing and running your executive team? How do you have visibility into if clients are getting results or not? How do you have visibility if clients are happy or not? What do you need to build tomorrow that'll make you more competitive? How do you fix and optimize your positioning? How do you set up OTE and comps plans? How do you recruit better talent? It always goes back into, frankly, like the operational side of operating an agency. It always starts on like, I want to grow. And then I think everybody kind of realizes, oh, I'm not growing for these structural reasons. And then we get to get in the weeds together. So it's super fun, man. I've got room for 22 clients calls a month. So essentially each engagement it's $6,000 a month. And then we do 2 calls. That's it, 1 hour. So it's 2 hours a month. Every 2 weeks we meet. You bring me the agenda and we just go build and accomplish things. Like, if you're not doing it, I'll just fire you. I don't need your money. And if you want to be great, show up. I promise you, you will accomplish your goals and we'll have a ton of fun. If you don't want to, that's fine. Like, don't bother me. Like, I'm here to win. So let's go win together. And I find hyper competitive people who want to win. It's super fun.
Sounds fun. I mean, legitimately, my favorite part of my job right now is talking to like other agency owners that are, like on calls like this. Like talking to somebody like you is one of my favorite parts of the day. So I can appreciate that for sure on both sides. Garrett, last question for you here on the before we start to wrap up. What's a book you've been reading or read in the last year or two that impacted you, or sort of whether it's personal or professional?
Well, I've been reading a lot about fishing. So like anything I get into, I get a little obsessive.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
So I run like a sports fishing team. So we did about 5 tournaments in Southern California last year, kind of all money tournaments for the most part. But they're all small. And then now brought on kind of like full-time captain and moving the boat down to Mexico to do like the big money, like the biggest tournaments in fishing globally are all kind of in Cabo and Loreto. So doing that. And then I just read a lot on ocean stuff too, like learning how tides, like the ocean ecosystem works, fishing books, fishing YouTube videos. And then business wise, I haven't had a new initiative that was like outside of historical experience yet. And I kind of like, so I had this weird thing when I'd read a lot. So I've read most of the books that I wanted to read. So like if someone recommends one, I buy it and I read it. So I've learned everything through reading. So like when I started, for example, like when I was homeschooled growing up, I used to read like 18 Hardy Boy books in a day. So I had like a weird reading thing. So when I started this company, I just like would ask anyone any business book and I would just read them all. So like the book I would recommend to someone if they're like, hey, what should I read to get better? Some of the best books I've read would be Managing the Professional Services Firm. It's an old school book. It's really, really valuable for agency owners. So it's called Managing the Professional Services Firm. Good to Great is a really good book and series. He has another one, I forget what it's called right now. Book that I think changed my life. Like 2 books that I think I was able to implement. They were more implementation books where you could read them and apply. The book was a book called Who. It's world class. It's from the same author that wrote another book called Top Grading. So the book called Who can help you get better at recruiting and hiring. And then I read all of the Winning by Design books to develop agency sales process. So I've applied the Winning by Design books into Directive and applied their methodology. And I've applied Who to recruiting and applied that methodology. And then any business book you can read is a good book. I mean, there's books like from Gaddis, I think it is, called On Grand Strategy. So it's strategy books, history books, war kind of strategy books are also really insightful to how to think about competitive positioning and running your shop. I mean, any book you can read makes you better. It's a good book. Just go read
it. I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of picking up bits of knowledge through reading as well as conversations. I think the two kind of complement each other, and then the execution and getting the reps in is probably the biggest thing. But yeah, you kind of got to do it all. Man, Garrett, this is like a masterclass. This is awesome. Lots of good stuff. We went everywhere from tactically running an agency to starting a new one to buying other ones. Covered a lot of ground. Where can people follow up with you? Obviously, there's Directive, the main company you run, but feel free to drop any other references that are good.
The holdco is called Mehrguth Capital. So if you're ever looking to sell your shop, you can check that out or just DM me. But I'm on LinkedIn these days. I used to be more of Twitter, and I still like Twitter more, but nobody from my audience is there. So I'm on LinkedIn. I try to publish, 3-4 times a week. I write all my own content. I've been putting a lot of effort into it since last July. So hopefully there's something valuable in there. I talk about marketing and then agencies. So those are like the 2 topics I go back and forth on usually. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll put links in for sure. Thanks, Garrett. And everyone, Garrett Mehrguth is here to drop his knowledge. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Follow up with him if you have other questions. And thanks for listening. Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.